Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the DFO DFS show for Wednesday, April the 7th. We have a 4-game slate on our hands tonight. We had 5 games on the day total, one of which started at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time. So 4-game slate for the the main slate on Draftkings. Hope everybody had a good night last night. Obviously, two of my favorites, Dallas and San Jose, not a strong night, but otherwise, we pretty much nailed all the other lines in terms of who was going to go off in which game. I wasn't necessarily a huge fan of each game in particular, but the lines from that game that we targeted were all the lines that actually did the goal scoring. So obviously, that just kind of continues to speak to the success of what we've got going on here. Sometimes it doesn't always go your way overall, but last night was definitely a night where maybe it wasn't the night, the spots that we were in love with, but still the spots that we were kind of on the outside of went off. So still a good night, still happy with it. Hope you guys had a solid night. Hopefully we have a better night, across the board tonight. First of all, I would like to say, it is National Beer Day. So cheers to everybody out there listening to the DFO DFS show today. And secondly, we've got, Ontario headed into another lockdown here today. So, I'd be lying a little bit if I said I hadn't already had a couple on National Beer Day today. So hopefully everyone out there is ready to rock, because I certainly am. 4-game slate, pretty interesting slate. 4 games, as good as a 4-game slate can be, in my opinion. So pretty good. And we will get right into it here. We'll start with the goalies like we always do. Toronto will host the Montreal Canadiens. Jack Campbell is expected to start for Toronto. Jake Allen confirmed to start for the Montreal Canadiens. Carey Price stayed back in Montreal dealing with a bit of an injury, so Jake Allen will go tonight. Jason says, good info and content. Thank you very much, Jason. Thank you for tuning in. Again, if you guys are new, anything that you will see in the Google Sheets can be available to you by joining DFO Premium. Moving along, Fernando says, cheers, thank you so much. So that's the goaltenders for that game. We did just get information about 1 minute before I came live, so it will be a little bit troublesome for some of the information I have. William Nylander will not play. He will be held out for precautionary reasons tonight. Apparently was a close contact to somebody with COVID-19. So he will not play. Obviously, I had no opportunity to update any of the information for that reason, but we'll still kind of try to break it down as much as we can with the amount of information that we do have. And then, the second game of the night doesn't start till 9 p.m. So, you basically, if you play a lot of Leafs or a lot of Habs and they get off to a good start, you'll be off, you'll be looking good for a few hours. But at 9 o'clock, Minnesota hosts the Avalanche again. Cam Talbot back in net for the Wild. Philip Grubauer confirmed to start for the Avalanche. Third game of the night, is likely that Jordan Binnington will go for the St. Louis Blues. Unconfirmed who starts for the Golden Knights. Pretty much a toss-up. Most likely, though, I would imagine we see Marc-Andre Fleury tonight. They've been kind of rotating it. So the Kings look like they're going to go to Jonathan Quick. He is likely to start for the Kings. Aiden Hill continues to get the nod for the Arizona Coyotes. So a small 4-game slate, nothing too crazy, but we will break everything down. So, if you've been watching this show, religiously over the last couple of weeks, you know that I have been kind of all over Toronto 2. Toronto 2 has been one of those lines that I seemingly go to kind of every single night because they are always, in a pretty good, they're always just as good of a spot as Toronto 1 when Toronto 1 is chalky. And, their underlying numbers have been really, really solid. And that's what we're going off of here. With Nylander out, it's going to be much more difficult. So maybe this is just like the hockey gods telling me, like, Brock, you don't need to play Toronto 2 tonight. So we're just going to take Nylander completely out of the equation and make Toronto 2 look much worse than they probably should. So this number here is going to come down considerably without William Nylander. So again, take a lot of this Toronto 2 stuff with a grain of salt because we really don't really know what's going to happen. If I had to guess what would happen in terms of the lineup, Alexander Barabanov is the one that is expected to enter the lineup for William Nylander. So what I would imagine is that either whoa, Rob, watch it. I would imagine that either Joe Thornton, Jason Spezza, or Wayne Simmons, one of those veterans, is most likely going to move up. It could be Alexander Kerfoot, I guess, as well. He's moved up and played with Tavares quite a bit this year. I really have no idea. There hasn't been any information, at least in the few minutes that I had before coming live, as to who is going to replace him there. So it's kind of a mystery. And to be honest with you, it doesn't really matter. Without Nylander, Tavares' numbers have not been nearly as won't be nearly as solid. And it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to go there. I think John Tavares is probably still a pretty solid one-off option, being on the top power play unit and all. Maybe if it is Wayne Simmons, if we get information, it is the first game of the night. If we get information that he moves to that second line in warm-ups, then maybe they're a decent mini stack option, the fact that they play together on the top power play unit. But I don't like when Joe Thornton goes up with Matthews, the Matthews line doesn't look nearly as good. When Kerfoot was on the Tavares line with Nylander and Tavares, that line wasn't nearly as good. So it doesn't really matter who moves up. The line is just not going to be nearly as effective as it is with William Nylander. And, I don't think that comes or should come as much as of a surprise. So to me, Toronto 1 looks really good. The problem here is that Montreal is one of the best 5v5 teams in hockey. But Philip Deneau's line is going to be without Brendan Gallagher tonight. So, seemingly one of the better shutdown lines in all the NHL isn't going to be really available, for Montreal 3 tonight or for Montreal tonight at all. So I guess I should probably show you what Montreal's lines look like without Philip Deneau. So basically all that's going to happen is I think that they're without Brendan Gallagher. What's going to happen is Jesperi Kotkaniemi is going to move into the lineup or move up the lineup to the wing. He's going to play on the Philip Deneau, Thomas Tatar line, seemingly probably going to get less minutes than they would have normally. So that opens the door for more minutes for Nick Suzuki, more minutes for the Eric Staal line. Eric Staal line, we were all over them the other night. They looked pretty solid. Obviously, Eric Staal didn't score till overtime, but they still looked solid in his debut. So it's weird because even when Gallagher was in the lineup, Toronto kind of goes Matthews versus Deneau. It's going to be interesting to see if they change that up a little bit tonight, and maybe they go Matthews versus Suzuki as opposed to the Deneau line, and just match up, number 1 against number 1. This is kind of all I have to go off of. It's not, there's no way of, predicting the future. So based on what they've done historically, it looks like it's going to be kind of Matthews versus Deneau, and but I wouldn't be surprised if it's Matthews versus Suzuki more than not. So in terms of that matchup, obviously Toronto won really, really good numbers across the board. 36, almost 37 scoring chances for, 17 high danger, terrific numbers across the board for them. And now they're going to be going up against, Montreal 3, who is significantly worse. And I shouldn't say significantly worse because they're still pretty good. 58% Corsi for, 56.5 expected goals for percentage. Sorry, I missed it. Did you say why Nylander is out? DK still shows him as playing. Yeah, it literally just got announced, I would say 10 minutes ago. So DK is going to take a few minutes to go. He is being held out for precautionary reasons. I believe what the Leafs PR said was that it was a close contact to COVID-19 positive. So they said they're just holding him out for precautionary reasons, but the game still looks like it's full go. So yeah, anyway, Montreal 3 still looks fine, in terms of their overall numbers. But they're nowhere near as good as they were with Gallagher. So this is good news for Toronto 1. No Gallagher will help a ton. As for the rest of these matchups, it looks like it's going to be Nick Suzuki versus John Tavares, and then kind of just the bottom 6 against the bottom 6. So again, these numbers are going to completely change. I'm sorry I didn't have time to update them. It was so last minute, I didn't really have a chance. So it's really difficult to kind of project what's going to happen here with Toronto 2 and how it's going to affect those numbers. You should just know that offensively, the numbers are going to crater. And defensively, they're going to, they weren't that great to begin with anyway. And I would imagine that they're probably not going to get any stronger. They probably aren't going to get too much worse, though. They'll probably stay right around the same. So I think that this is a pretty good matchup for Montreal 1. If they do end up seeing a lot of the Tavares line. But again, like I mentioned, it's very difficult to pinpoint what these matchups are going to look like just because of the changes with both the Tavares line and now the Philip Deneau line. So the matchups in this game are a little bit more difficult to predict as they have been in recent games between Toronto and Montreal. So to me, I think what the best option to probably do is to most likely go with the second line of Montreal. I think that Eric Staal line is probably the road I would take. Josh Anderson looked terrific the other night. He's had a really nice season. Nick Suzuki seems to be coming on strong here a little bit as well. But to me, Montreal 2 still looks like the preferred option. Jonathan Drouin and Tyler Toffoli have had quite a bit of success together this season. Most of that has obviously come with Nick Suzuki at center, but Eric Staal is perfectly capable. Jonathan Drouin has really upped his shot volume and made him a more reliable, at least safer DFS option than he was earlier in the season. Eric Staal obviously is not minimum price anymore, but he is still 3,400. So to full stack them at 13,700, I do like that quite a bit. I think that's a pretty interesting play. And based on the matchups, I think that this matchup is probably a little bit, more, a little bit easier to project. They're going to see a little bit of Matthews, but they are going to see mostly the bottom six of the Maple Leafs, which, is definitely their weak spot, at least defensively. I mean, we're talking about the Engvall line. We're talking about the Spezza line. They seem to really trust that Engvall line. They're not that great, at least when Hyman's not on that line. When Hyman was there, they obviously trusted him a little more, and I get that. But this looks like probably the best matchup for Montreal. Is Montreal the new Montreal 2, which is Eric Staal, Drouin, and Toffoli going up against the bottom six of the Maple Leafs. I think you could probably buy into that matchup a little bit more. The one I don't know for sure is whether Toronto 1 or Toronto 2 is going to see more of Suzuki. But I think you can buy a little bit more into Toronto matching up their bottom six against the Eric Staal line. So that looks like probably the route I would go on Montreal's side of things. It is their best offensive line, and they do have the better matchup. It kind of seems like a no-brainer there to me. And then on Toronto's side, I really wouldn't look too far past just Toronto 1. I mean, obviously it's easy to say it's a 4-game slate. They're going to be massively popular. They're, super expensive. At least Matthews is. Marner's price, he's been pretty quiet as of late. So his price is actually pretty reasonable. I can definitely get behind Marner at 7,600. And quiet for Mitch Marner means 1 assist in his last 3 games. He doesn't get held down very long. So I think this is a pretty good game. This should be a pretty good game for Toronto 1. And the fact that Gallagher is missing from Montreal's lineup is going to be bigger than most. Just to advise to all, keep an eye on Toronto game with what happened last time when Vancouver game got canceled minutes before the start. Yeah, that is definitely the case. I'm obviously less concerned about that tonight just because it's a 7:30 start on a 4-game slate. It's the first game, and it's the first game by a mile, right? So if it does end up getting canceled for whatever reason, it doesn't sound like that's what's going to happen. But if it does, you'll have plenty of time to make your changes to your lineup because of just the way the schedule is tonight. So definitely, yes, Fernando, thank you very much for pointing that out. It's certainly, I suppose, possible, especially with the NHL seemingly, you would imagine that they'll probably be a little bit more careful with COVID going forward, especially considering what's going on in Vancouver, right? I mean, like, one player was on the ice at practice for 7 minutes and the entire team is infected. So it's certainly possible that could happen. But again, just the way the schedule is laid out tonight, you would definitely have time, plenty of notice to build lineups for what would then become a 3-game slate if that were to happen. So yeah, that's pretty much all I've got for that game. I guess I can probably just pop over to the power play report. The Maple Leafs do have the best power play advantage. Really, really good power play on paper. The best power play on the entire slate against the worst penalty kill on the entire slate. So it looks really, really good for Toronto tonight. And just to go back and show you what their power play looks like. So obviously Toronto 1's going to be massively popular. Toronto 2, I'm not on them tonight, so it's probably going to be a massive night for them. But what I would do, I guess, to differentiate a little bit would be just to play Tavares with Marner and Matthews, right? Matthews, Marner, Hyman's going to be popular. Whether you leave Hyman off and include Tavares, I still think that'll be relatively popular. I think playing all 3 full stack in Toronto 1 and including Tavares is kind of the way to differentiate a little bit. I think that's a good route to go. Tavares has been really hot as of late. Obviously, that's the reason why I've been kind of all over them. But, I think that's kind of the route I'm going to take tonight. It looks like a really nice, like a huge power play advantage. Obviously, the one thing is obviously Montreal, if they can stay disciplined like they did against Edmonton the other night, they have a chance. But if they get in penalty trouble, I guess the one thing is Toronto's power play has been struggling a little bit. But come on. I'm not going to be on a 4-game slate, be like, oh, I'm worried about how, the Maple Leafs' recent power play struggles. It's Matthews, it's Marner, it's Tavares, it's Morgan Riley. I'm not worried about them at all. All right, Minnesota versus Colorado. So it's National Beard Day. Even if Toronto 2 goes off, we won't remember. I mean, fair enough, right? I think I'll definitely still have some exposure to Toronto 2 if you're building, many lineups, lots of lineups. It just all depends on who moves up. To me, though, like I don't even really know who my favorite option would be. I think it would have to be Spezza or Simmons to get my attention, really. Just Simmons for the power play exposure and Spezza just because he's actually pretty good still. All right, second game of the night. So the other night, I mentioned that, if you're going to take a stand against Colorado, Toronto, and Edmonton all on the same night, the other night was kind of the night to do it. Edmonton fade worked. Toronto 1 fade worked a little bit. Obviously, Matthews went crazy, but Marner did shit all. Hyman didn't really do anything. And then the Colorado 1 fade didn't work. I think what's happening at this point is that Colorado 1 is not stop. Like they're unstoppable. Like they're matchup proof. It didn't look like a very good matchup, and they destroyed the Joel Eriksson line. I think they were like their Corsi 4 was like 14 or 16 Corsi 4 and 2 against. Like they had like a 90% Corsi in the game. They absolutely decimated the Joel Eriksson line. That Eriksson line is the only line that's going to stay together tonight. They are going to be hard matched against McKinnon. So I don't even care anymore. Like if it looks like it's a bad matchup for Colorado 1, it's not. They're just too good. The whole team is just too good. So, I mean, even if the matchup looks bad, they look great every night. I'm not fading them anymore, especially on a small slate. As I mentioned, 79% of Joel Eriksson minutes are expected to come against the Nathan McKinnon line tonight. So, as I mentioned, that's a pretty solid defensive line. After getting crushed by McKinnon, they actually don't look that good defensively, right? Like, I mean, they've played probably I think it's like 130 minutes together or something this year, but like that 10 minutes against McKinnon just made them a below average defensive line. That's how quickly things can change when you go up against McKinnon. So they got absolutely crushed. I would imagine that probably happens against tonight. I'm just not fading Colorado 1. Lock them and load them. If you're building many lineups, they still look great. They look solid on the power play as well. The second biggest power play advantage, the second best power play overall. The Wild do have a good penalty kill, but who cares? Even if they don't get it done on the power play, they're going to crush them at 5v5. Graham says stack Colorado 1 and 3 tonight? Question mark. I mean, yeah. I think so. Colorado 3 looks great again. Price wise, 10,800. The one thing I guess that should maybe grab your attention a little bit is Colorado 2 is getting cheaper. The problem is though for them, they just aren't as good as Colorado 3 offensively. Colorado 3, their offensive numbers are outstanding. The one thing going, I guess, for Colorado 2 is the fact they play a little bit more ice time, but Colorado 3 still has numbers that really almost mirror that of Colorado 1. So to me, there's really no reason in playing Colorado 2 other than the fact that they will be, relatively low owned. But people still aren't. I've noticed that even after Colorado 3 went crazy, the Donskoy hat-trick game, like their own percentage still hasn't gotten all that high. Based on the matchups, Colorado 2 is expected to go basically head-to-head with Minnesota 3. Colorado 3 is expected to see a lot of Minnesota 2 with a sprinkling of the bottom 6 as well. So it's weird. So Minnesota 3 is not very good defensively. They're not very good at all. 46.6% Corsi for 45% expected goals for percentage is not good. So the Kadri line has a chance tonight. No doubt about it. The other matchup, now you've got Colorado 3 seeing a little bit more of Minnesota 2. They're a little bit better defensively, but even them, they're still not great. So I think they probably offset each other, right? Like Colorado 2 has a slightly better matchup. They're just not as good offensively. Colorado 3, is an absolute horse on the forecheck. Like they're incredible. They're the best forechecking line in all of hockey. And to me, a matchup with Victor Rask, Nick Bonino, and Kevin Fiala looks really juicy. Like they should just crush them. On the forecheck, they should get in get in on the puck early, quick, and really hem these guys in. And they should just destroy them. So again, it is Colorado 3. It is a third line. They're probably not going to play a whole lot of ice time, but they still look, super, super good. And the price is super, super cheap still. It does not matter. Yost is, basically minimum price still. Then Shushkin only 3,300. Donskoy's come up a bit, but he's on the top power play unit. That's completely fine. I'll pay 4,700 for Donskoy. So yeah, Colorado 3 looks really good against night. Raider7 says, so when there are two lines that seem way better on a slate, do you have a suggestion to get different? I mean, yeah, you're going to have to find a way to get different. And there's many ways to do it, right? Like full stacking Colorado 1 is going to be 30% owned. Full stacking Toronto 1 is going to be 30% owned. But you can get different, whether it's with your goalie, whether it's with your defense, even just the other line that you pair them with, right? So yeah, like I say, like, okay, add Tavares to get different with Toronto 1, but you can get completely different by just stacking a line that's 3% owned, like we did the other night with Arizona 1, right? We were like, okay, let's play Michael Bunting at 3%. He scores a hat trick. Well, now you're suddenly completely different. So you don't have to worry about eating the chalk on a 4-game slate as long as you're not pairing, Toronto 1 full stack or Colorado 1 full stack, with the most popular value line on the slate. And to me, that most popular value line on the slate is probably going to be Vegas 2 or Arizona 1. The problem with is that we were ahead of the curve on Arizona 1, right? Like we played Arizona 1 when Michael Bunting scored a hat trick at minimum price. Problem is he scored a hat trick at minimum price. He didn't score 1 goal with an assist, quietly picked up 16 Draftkings points or whatever. He scored a hat trick. The secret's out, right? The word is out. They're going to be, they're going to see ownership tonight. They're not going to be super high owned, but they're going to see ownership. There's no question about it. If he scored 1 goal and an assist, had a quiet game, we probably could have rode it out like we did with Colorado 3 and just kept playing him, and at super low ownership. The fact that he comes out and scores a hattie, like basically first game on the line, everyone's going to be like, I'm in, especially on a 4-game slate. So, pairing Colorado 1 with Arizona 1, yeah, I like it. But it's going to be, relatively popular. So then maybe you have to play some lower owned goalies, some lower owned defensemen, whatever the case is, right? You're going to have to eat the chalk on this slate. You're just going to have to get different in different spots. From the Minnesota side of things, they did score 4 goals the other night, and that's fine. I'm just not going there. I refuse to play anybody against Colorado. Those defensive numbers are ridiculous. I mentioned it the other night. So here's the 5 best defensive lines on tonight's slate. Starting from worst to best is Colorado 2, Colorado 1, Montreal 2, Colorado 3, Colorado 4. They're insane. They're insanely good defensively. They're going to have some nights where they give goals. We've seen it time and again, but overall, they're outstanding defensively, and Minnesota's power play is a total shit show. So, it's a small slate. I'm willing to take a stand on Minnesota in this spot. Alexander says, so is Donskoy in a better position than Hyman? Both tough matchups, but Donskoy PP1. Thoughts? Yes. I would agree with that. I would say that Donskoy is in a better position than Hyman because not only can he get it done at 5v5, but he also has PP1 exposure. So I think that if it makes sense though, like if you're fading, let's say Colorado 1, for example, and you want to play Toronto 1 instead, then you play Toronto 1 and you play Donskoy, right? Because at least you're still getting some exposure to Colorado 1 on that power play. So Donskoy is going to be super high owned for that reason. You're going to, you play Toronto 1 with Donskoy. I think that makes a ton of sense. Maybe it's Donskoy, Makar, and Toronto 1, and then you pay Bunting and Eric Stahl or whatever, some super low value plays, something like that. But yeah, I like Donskoy better than Hyman tonight, but if you're playing Toronto 1, it obviously still makes sense to play Hyman. But because like if Matthews, let's say, is 45, 50% owned, Marner's 35%, Hyman's still probably going to be 26, right? So like full stacking with Hyman is already a way to get a little bit different because a lot of people are going to leave him off still. Sounds good. Final question. Who would you remove tonight between Martinez, Chychrun, and Makar? To me, it has to be Martinez, just because he doesn't have he's not on the PP1. But he's been ridiculous. Like he's been so good. His numbers are just ridiculous. His shot blocking numbers are just through the roof. He's been red hot. But to me, I would still play Chychrun and Makar over him, but it's close. But if I had to leave one off, I think his floor is probably, maybe even better than those guys. But ceiling wise, obviously he's come off a 2-goal game. But like ceiling wise, it's got to be lower than Chychrun and Makar. So if it's GPP, I think that you leave Martinez off. If it's cash, I think there's an argument to be made about Martinez because his shot blocking prowess is just insane. So in GPP though, I would leave him out of that trio. All right, moving along, we got the third game of the night. We've got the St. Louis Blues and the Golden Knights. So this is a difficult game to break down because the Blues got absolutely just mangled by the Golden Knights. And then in yesterday's practice, they just bag skated them. They did battle drills. They just worked their asses off in practice, but they didn't run any lines. So is this what their lineup could look like tonight? Sure. Is it likely? Probably not. He said that they've got a couple of game time decisions tonight. Like Mike Hoffman could very easily be healthy scratched again. This is what they went to in the second half of that game, and they seemingly didn't give up any goals after doing that. They didn't score any either. But I mean, it's hard to really be like, hey, here's who you should play from the Blues tonight, because I think Schwartz, Schenn, and Tarasenko looks pretty decent. The rest of this lineup does not, but that top line looks appealing. But if you build around that or you build using them and then they're not together, it's like, what do you what am I? I look like an asshole. So if they are together, I think that line looks okay. They grade out as the second best line in this game. You get Schwartz at 3,600. You get Schenn at 5,100. Tarasenko 5,900. They look okay. I don't hate them in that spot. They are, however, going to see basically all of the Pacioretty and the William Karlsson line. Which is okay. The Pacioretty line is pretty solid defensively. The Karlsson line basically is just as up tempo as you can, as an up tempo of a matchup as you can hope for. Like if you got Tarasenko out there, and you want him hey, let's just trade chances, I'm fine with that, right? And that's what that matchup looks like. It could be both lines giving up, a fair amount of offense. So it could be a high event matchup, and they're not going to be very high owned. People are going to see that they just got crushed and expect Vegas to crush them again. So St. Louis won if they're together, especially at that price. I do have a little bit of intrigue or interest there. But again, I have no clue what their lines are going to look like tonight. So it's a little bit difficult to project. With Tarasenko, Schenn together on the top power play unit, at least in their last game, those could change too. But I think there's a little bit of interest there tonight. They should come at very low ownership. We're talking about trying to get different with Toronto 1, with Colorado 1. I think playing St. Louis 1 with them is a way to do that. I think their ceiling is probably not as high as some of these other lines like Vegas 2, which we'll get to in a second. But their ownership being probably closer to 9%, I would imagine is pretty makes them a little bit more appealing. So, but with Vegas 2 still seems like the best. Again, it's going to be difficult to really talk about because of the matchups. They are expected to see a lot of the Schenn line regardless, so it doesn't really matter who's Schen's wingers. They're gonna see a lot of the Braden Schenn line. But overall, Braden Schenn has not been all that great this year, at least with those guys. In terms of defense, they're slightly below average. Vegas 2 has been red hot, so I'll just keep going back to them until they stop being awesome. So I really like them. The good news for them is they should avoid Ryan O'Reilly, who's been much better at 5v5 this year than Braden Schenn, at least defensively, not offensively, but defensively, it's a better matchup for Vegas 2. So I like Vegas 2. Again, I'm probably not going to go too crazy at Vegas 1. Chandler Stevenson should be back tonight. So he should be back in that spot. But still, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to pay, $7,900 for Pacioretty, $6,200 for Stone. And when you can get Marchessault at 5,700, Smith at 3,600, and Karlsson at 4,900, playing better hockey. So Vegas 2, even if Chandler Stevenson is back, which he should be. I kind of forgot about that earlier. All right, fourth game of the night. So again, we were all over Arizona 1 the other night. They look rock solid. Excuse me. They look rock solid again tonight. Best line in this game, 3,200 for Michael Bunting, still very reasonable. Nick Schmaltz 4,000, Connor Garland 5,800. Happy National Beer Day to anybody that just showed up. But Michael Bunting, can we just talk about him for a second? The hat trick was great. 6 shots, amazing. But in his first 4 games in the NHL this season, 15 minutes, 17 and a half, 19.2, and 17.4. He's playing a ton. He's on the top line now. He had 6 shots the other night. He's had at least 3 shots in 3 of 4 games. There's really nothing not to like here. And I mentioned on the last, Monday's show, the reason I liked Bunting was he was minimum price on the top line. obviously, but B, he's put up good numbers at every stop in his career, right? It's not like, oh, he's, now he's in the NHL and he's getting super lucky. Like maybe he is to a certain degree. But he's been a guy that has put up numbers at every stop. So it's not like a crazy outlier in his career. So I do like Michael Bunting again tonight. Maybe there is a case that people will be like, oh, he just scored a hat trick. There's no way in hell he does it again. To me, obviously, chances of him scoring another hat trick, very slim. But him having another good game, fairly high. They looked really good in that game the other night. They saw less of Kopitar as I thought they were going to. They ended up seeing a little bit more of LA3, which is, a little bit worse defensively than the Kopitar line, but still not terrible. They are slightly below average. Again, you basically want to play anybody who's going to see LA2, which the other day I said, okay, let's play. Maybe you can one-off Brassard. He's going to see plenty of LA, which was then LA3. Now it's LA2 because Velarde's getting benched tonight. And Brassard scored. So, we hit the nail on the head in that game. I guess, Arizona's one is still going to see 20% of their ice time against LA2. So there's a lot to like about Arizona 1 again tonight. I mean, in terms of these matchups, they're going to be playing against LA 1 through 3, basically just avoiding the fourth line. All four lines, or all three of the top 9 of the Kings is either Raider, the Kopitar line is basically average. They suck some fun out of the game, but they still had success against them. And the second and third line are not very good defensively, giving up 31 and 27 scoring chances against per 60. Meanwhile, Arizona 1, 3.22 expected goals for, 29 scoring chances, 13 high danger. Overall on the slate, Arizona grades as the 6th best offensive line. So you got to like, I guess, actually probably 5th best offensive line now that Toronto 2 is going to drop down. So a lot to like here. And again, super, super reasonably priced at $13,000 to full stack them. The good news there, too, is if you full stack them, they all play together on the top power play unit with Jacob Chychrun. But the other thing is that Alex Goligoski was on that unit as well. They went just basically full line 1 with 2 D-men. So if if you're tight up against the cash and you can't fit Chychrun, then you can just throw Goligoski in there, right? He plays with Chychrun, so they're going to play at 5v5, plays together on the power play. So he's going to see plenty of ice time with Arizona 1. And he's just 3,700 as opposed to 5,900 for Jacob Chychrun. So you get a little bit of salary relief there as well. And I don't hate it at all. Graham asks, is Bunting a no-brainer at that price? Yeah, to me, he is. I mean, like on a 4-game slate, there's not like you have a whole lot of options, right? Like it's not like you have a whole lot of value to be found. I mean, Galchenyuk looked like great value, but with Nylander out, maybe probably less appealing now. Obviously, you have Colorado 3 presents pretty good value, or I shouldn't say pretty good, very good value. Riley Smith at right around the same price, pretty good value. Eric Stahl right around the same price, pretty good value. But there's not a whole lot. So Bunting at 3,200, seeing 17 minutes a night, top power play usage. Yeah, he's a great play. And hopefully, I hope that people don't flock to him. I would imagine he's relatively high owned. I hope it's not the case. I don't know, like the disparity from one night to the next, like how big is his ownership differential be, right? Like, I mean, is he going to go from 3% to 30? Probably not. If that happens, it would be wild. It is a 4-game slate. It helps his case for that to happen a little bit, but I would imagine he still settles in a little bit lower owned, maybe around 15%. But again, nobody can really nail down NHL ownership. No one has a clue. Bunting is going to be very chalky. Yeah, I would imagine he would, especially in cash. In GPP, maybe not quite as much, but I'm hoping that people are like, well, you just scored a hat trick, and maybe he's not going to do it again. But it is a good matchup. I love Arizona 1 again tonight. And you heard it here first. We're the original Arizona 1. The other thing that's really interesting, actually, I just want to go back for a minute. What did I just do? We talked about it before, like, hey, well, now everyone knows about Colorado 3. Who's the new Colorado 3? I think there's something to be said here about Vegas 3, and I completely forgot to talk about them. Vegas 3, they're basically going to go head-to-head majority of the time. I mean, not head-to-head. They're going to see 30% of their ice time against St. Louis 4, a little bit of the top 6. It doesn't really matter if you play against the Blues. They're okay. Defensively, they're not great. Some nights they suck the life out of the game, and if that happens tonight, it's going to suck. Definitely a possibility. But Vegas 3 looks like a potential new Colorado 3 a little bit too. Like they're like Colorado 3 in the weeds, right? I mean, Thomas Nosek is on fire right now. He's got 3 goals in his last 5 games. He's got 1 assist in that time. He's shooting at a ridiculously unsustainable clip over that time, but he's put the puck in the net. Their offensive numbers are really, really good. 2.77, 34 scoring chances for, 13 high danger. They basically, they're better offensive numbers than Vegas won, and they're super cheap. I don't have quite as much faith because you don't have like Don scoring the top power play units, at least like kind of buoy them up. But Tuck at 4,200, Nosek at 2,900. I don't mind that as like a little mini stack. I forgot to talk about them earlier, but I think based on those numbers, the matchup looks pretty solid as well. I think that there is some merit to playing them. And again, you're trying to get different. You're trying to get off the chalk a little bit when you're playing Colorado 1 or Toronto 1 tonight. And I think that they're definitely a way to do that. If you don't want to eat the bunting chunk a little bit, then maybe it's Colorado or Vegas 3 or Colorado 3. But all right, just quickly before I get to the goalies here, just going to go through the rest of this Arizona game. So Arizona 2 is basically just going to play against everybody except for LA 2. And that's the line that you really want to target against LA. So, the matchups still aren't bad. Like I mentioned, 1, 3, and 4 for LA aren't great defensively, but Arizona 2, their offensive numbers are so. If you want to get off of maybe the Arizona 1 chalkiness a little bit, if they are that, Keller at 4,500, Dvorak 42, Kessel at 41. They're very reasonably priced as well. 12,800 full stack them. So a little bit cheaper than Arizona 1, just probably not quite the same upside, but the ownership should come in significantly lower. So they look relatively interesting as well on a 4-game slate. If it was a bigger slate, I probably wouldn't talk about them at all, but on a 4-gamer, I think that they're pretty interesting. From an LA perspective, I can't do it. Everybody plays this top line all the time. Their ownership always blows my mind. And they just don't get, obviously they've been productive. And don't get me wrong. Brown has had an outstanding season. Kopitar's had a really good year. Brown shoots a ton. I get it kind of to a degree. Their overall numbers look appealing. But from, an underlying number perspective, I just don't see it. The one thing they do have going for them, Arizona is not that great defensively. So there is, I guess, some potential there to play LA. If you want to play LA 1, that's fine. But to me, their ownership always comes in at a point where it's it's not even worth it. If they were low owned, I'd be like, sure, I'll buy in for a minute. But overall, I can't get behind what, you're going to get for them in terms of ownership. This Athanasiou, Adrian Kempe combo has been the most high event, line ever. With Carter, it comes down a little bit. So I just, again, on a 4-game slate, you do have to try to take a stand somewhere. And to me, it's still LA. So I'm just probably not going to go there. But the top line still looks okay. The rest of the lineup, I don't know. I just can't do it. In terms of the power play for those last couple games, Vegas' power play looks solid. The Blues' penalty kill is not very good. Blues also not very disciplined either. LA's power play actually grades out pretty well. They draw a ton of penalties, and Arizona's not very disciplined. So that kind of boosted a little bit. Their power play is basically as mediocre as it gets. The Coyotes' penalty kill is not very great. So it helps the Kings out a little bit if you want to go there, which basically just means that you're playing LA 1 with Drew Doughty. So again, that is just the one line I would play if I'm playing LA, and it makes sense, I guess, from a power play perspective. That's fine. If you wanted to play LA 1, I wouldn't hate you for it. Wouldn't hate you anyway. It's National Beer Day. Be happy. Arizona grades out negatively. Their power play is a joke, but they're a pretty good 5v5 team, so they got to get done there. All right. So Fernando says, any goalies jumping out is a great place. Yeah, goaltenders tonight. Jack Campbell still grades as the best. I mean, the guy's 9-0. It doesn't really surprise me. He's been electric for the Leafs. So he grades out as the number 1 goaltender. The one thing that's really good, obviously the matchup's not amazing. Montreal's pretty good, but it is on home ice. Vegas really likes him. He's got the second best odds in the entire slate. The shot volume should certainly be there. Second highest expected shot volume on the slate. So he looks great at 8,100. Doesn't surprise me that he rates out number 1. Number 2 is Phil Grubauer. He's just been electric all year long. The best odds on the entire slate really helps. He, shouldn't give up a ton. Like I said, they gave up 4 the other night, but this team's just too good defensively. There's no reason to doubt that Philip Grubauer should have a big night. Marc-Andre Fleury, the Blues are they're begging right now. They're searching. Even if they win this game, the Blues, I think that they have to, in order to win this game, the Blues have to win 3-2. They have to just suck the life out of the game. Similar to what they did against Colorado. I think it was over the weekend. Or maybe late last week. They just kind of sucked the fun out of it. And then, Colorado really did struggle in that game. I think they ended up winning, 3-2? And they scored with a lucky Cale Makar goal with 40 seconds to win. 40 seconds left to win. So that's that's like the game plan. That's like the blueprint for Arizona or St. Louis to win tonight. But overall, like that doesn't hurt Marc-Andre Fleury's upside, right? Like if he loses this game, most he's probably giving up his 3 goals. So I still think he still looks solid. Most chances are he wins. But then value. Cam Talbot pops, which is surprising. A lot of that, he has the worst odds on the slate. Most of it is the fact that he's played solid and he's just going to see a massive amount of shots. So he looks like a pretty decent value play. To me, though, I still think that I would rather play Adin Hill over him. Jonathan Quick and the Kings are actually favorites in this game. If Cal Peterson was playing, sure. The fact that Jonathan Quick's playing, I think that Arizona wins this game too. They're probably doing themselves a disservice by continuing to win games and maybe making the playoffs because they're not very good overall. But, they're still trying to make the playoffs. That's what these guys are here for. So, and Adin Hill is a big goalie that's played very well. So I like Adin Hill at 7,700. If you want to go Jake Allen, he's been solid. To me, Adin Hill is the best goaltender after the big 3 on the slate. I don't really have a whole lot of interest in the other guys, but if I did, I would probably play Allen over Talbot. I think he has just a better chance of winning. The Leafs power play hasn't been great either, and that's the one thing that the Montreal Canadiens suck at is the penalty kill. So if they can stay, disciplined-ish, even when they take some penalties, if the Leafs just struggle to score, Nylander's out, maybe, right? I think the Leafs could lose this game. Is it likely? No. But Jake Allen I think Jake Allen has a better chance of putting up 20 DraftKings points than Cam Talbot does. But if I had to rate them, I would go Campbell, Grubauer, Fleury, Hill, Allen would be my top 5. The model likes Talbot a little bit more, so if you want to take that shot, by all means, fire away. From defense, on a 4-game slate, you got to try to just, especially from GPP perspective, you got to try to just get as much correlation as possible and just pick up that extra assist and hope that you end up top. I don't think I need to really roll through them. I'm sure you guys use Daily Faceoff enough. You can figure out who correlates well with who. I think that, you get Morgan Riley at 4,900. He seems like a terrific play. He's obviously not been great. A lot of his overall value is tied in the power play production against Montreal, bad penalty kill. I think that there's definitely, reason to believe that they could have success in the power play tonight. So Morgan Riley at what did I say? 4,900 seems like a great value play tonight. And not really value, but like cheaper than it should be. Colton Parayko is interesting at 4,600. He's just super, super reliable. I would imagine that his price will steadily climb, as he continues, return to the lineup here, play games. But overall, I don't like the Blues that much. Vince Dunn disappointed us the other night. He'd been about as consistent as they come. And then I finally talk about him on the show when he puts up a total bagel. But, I would still go back to 3,900, plays pretty decent minutes. The issue for him is that Parayko is back tonight. So he still ended up playing around 17 to 19 minutes. So I wouldn't be too worried there. Sean Walker, routinely one of my favorite D punts. They're so banged up on the Kings blue line right now that he has played over 22 minutes, 3 games in a row. So in that span, he has 3, 5, and 4 shots on goal. He's blocked a total of 6 shots in those 3 games. So Sean Walker, 3,500, probably my favorite value play on the entire slate. I mentioned Alex Goligoski at 3,700. I think he's a decent alternative to Chychrun if you can't pay up for Chychrun. He has a 5-game point streak going with 6 assists. So Goligoski looks okay. As we continue to move down this list, there's not a whole lot. I think Braden McNabb is pretty interesting at 2,800. Just blocks a ton of shots. He's going to give you almost nothing in terms of offense. Outside of that, though, it's a pretty bear market. I should say bear, but it's a pretty ugly market in terms of value defensemen. We had a ton yesterday, right? And then today, basically nothing. I wish the Leafs presented a little bit more in terms of like a value defenseman. I wish there was someone we could turn to. Like Justin Hall at the start of the year was somebody we could turn to every night. He was picking up 5 blocks and assists here and there, and you just can't do it anymore. Like, I'm okay with it if you want to play him at 2,800. He's just nowhere near as reliable as he once was. The one thing that goes well is this should be a relatively up-tempo game. The Montreal Canadiens shoot a ton, so the opportunity for block shots should be present tonight. But as we head out here, I think that if we look at the 5v5 score, I mean, you've got Colorado 1, Toronto 1 cemented at the top. So, but like if you look at the price, like you can't play them together. So they're both going to just be so chalky, and it's just going to be a matter of finding that right combination with them. If we basically here, let me just take Toronto 1 completely, or Toronto 2 completely out of the equation. Arizona 1, Vegas 2, lines that I like. Montreal 2, those are lines that I talked about here. St. Louis 1, again, they look solid. Colorado 3, they look solid. Lines that we talked about here, these are the ones that you're going to have to turn to tonight, obviously. And they all look really good on paper. I would imagine Arizona 1's probably the chalkiest of the bunch. Vegas 2 seems to, for whatever reason, get no ownership. I would imagine that changes a little bit tonight. Montreal 2 will be popular. St. Louis 1, I think, is the one that I like a lot just because they're going to go so overlooked and they should be so low owned. But as I mentioned, I'm not even 100% they're going to play together. So you're going to have to tune in to Daily Faceoff on Twitter to, obviously I will retweet or tweet out their lines during warmups, and then you can react accordingly. But I think that basically what I can guarantee you is that Ryan O'Reilly is going to play with David Perron. It's one thing I'm certain of. The other thing I'm pretty certain of is that Jaden Schwartz will play with Braden Shen. How the rest of it shakes out, to be determined. But I hope it's Vladimir Tarasenko, Shen, and Schwartz. I think they present pretty nice value at super low ownership. Fernando says, thanks again. Good luck all. Let's get more likes. Yeah, as Fernando mentioned, please smash that like button on the way out. Raiders 7 says Colorado dumped 4 on Talbot in the second period on Monday, aka 4 goals in less than 2 beers. No thanks, Minnesota goalie versus Colorado. No, absolutely not. And then Graham says, try to tune in the show every night from Ireland. Wow, thank you so much for tuning in from Ireland. That's incredible. Love it, Brock, and bought a premium sub out of my winnings from here. Keep it up. Happy National Beer Day, everyone. Yeah, thank you so much for tuning in, Graham. I mean, Graham Burney, that is like a very seemingly French-Irish name here. I thought you would be from my hometown, to be honest with you. We got so many Bernies around here, but thank you so much for tuning in from Ireland. That is terrific stuff. But yeah, good luck to everybody tonight. Hopefully we get some wins. So what's going to happen this week? I am going to do a show Thursday. I am going to do a show Friday because I don't know if I'm going to be able to do a show next Monday. Next Monday is a trade deadline, and that's the busiest day of the year for me, outside of maybe free agency day on July 1st. But trade deadline day is a total nightmare. Maybe it's not this year because of, basically no one has any cap room. But I would imagine I won't be able to do a show Monday. So I will do one Friday to try to make up for, and then obviously I'll be back Tuesday and ready to rock for the rest of the week. But anyways, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please. It's pronounced burn. Oh, I'm a loser. I'm so sorry. Thanks you anyway for tuning in. I won't mess it up again. I promise. But yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please smash the like button on your way out. Hopefully you guys return with more money in your bankroll tomorrow than you have today. Smash that like button again. I'm going to say it like 7 or 8 times. But we'll see you guys back here tomorrow, 5:15 p.m. Eastern. We all know you're not doing a show Friday. No, I will. I'm not doing a podcast on Friday this week, so I will definitely do one on Friday. Would the Leafs maybe put Tavares on line 1? I doubt it. They're so good with Hyman up there. And it's not like they're playing, let's say, Ottawa, who maybe is like one really good line. Montreal's very deep. They're going to want to lengthen their lineup a little bit. If I had to guess, I would imagine that Alexander Kerfoot moves up to the wing with Tavares and Jason Spezza moves back to the middle on the 4th line. That would be my guess. At that point, there's not really a whole lot of reason to play Toronto 2. Like Kerfoot sucked the life out of that line when Nylander was there, and then with Galchenyuk and Kerfoot and Tavares, it just doesn't look that great. I think Tavares really is only a pretty good one-off. But the fact that I'm fading Toronto 2 tonight probably means they go off. So probably, stock up on Galchenyuk. But I don't know. Anyway, see you guys back here tomorrow.